The U.S. military has seized 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela. The Trump administration says the 2 ships, the Marinera in the North Atlantic and the Sophia in the Caribbean, were transporting sanctioned oil. 2 U.S. officials tell CBS News the vessel in the Atlantic, formerly known as Bella 1, had a Russian escort. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the operations are part of an ongoing effort by the Pentagon.
The Department of War is unwavering in its mission to crush illicit activity in the Western Hemisphere. And as the president has repeatedly stated, we're going to defend our homeland and restore security and strength across the Americas.
CBS News Pentagon reporter Eleanor Watson joins us now. So the U.S. had been pursuing at least one of the tankers for some time. What do we know about the seizure and how Russia is responding?
Well, Navy SEALs led this raid with support from the UK in the North Atlantic to seize this tanker, which the U.S. has been tracking for several weeks now. It's a tanker that used to be known as the Bella 1 and is under U.S. sanctions for being part of that so-called shadow fleet that transports oil from places like Venezuela and Iran. It initially was flying the flag of Guyana back in December when the Coast Guard first approached it, but recently switched its flag to Russian, prompting Russia to send assets, including a submarine, to try and escort it. We're told the U.S. interdicted it without incident, but Moscow has now condemned the seizure, adding another point of tension between the U.S. and Russia as talks to end the war in Ukraine continue.
The Trump administration says these vessels were deemed stateless. Can you explain a little bit more about how the military makes that determination?
The Navy and the Coast Guard do have a process where if they see something fishy, they contact the country whose flag a tanker is flying. For instance, back in December, another sanctioned oil tanker, part of that shadow fleet, was flying the flag of Guyana. But when contacted, Guyana said, no, it's not ours, making it stateless. In this instance, Russia has claimed the vessel, but the administration may have found that somewhat of a sham argument because the flag change occurred while the pursuit was underway. Now that it's seized, it's one of at least 4 vessels the administration has apprehended as part of its campaign to use Venezuela's most crucial resource, oil, to pressure the current leaders of Venezuela to meet the demands of the U.S.
Eleanor Watson, thank you. On Capitol Hill today, top Trump administration officials briefed all members of the House and Senate about the recent operations in Venezuela, including the capture of former President Nicolas Maduro. CBS News congressional correspondent Huey-Burns has more.
Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other administration officials were up here again on Capitol Hill to brief lawmakers. This time, they were briefing all members of Congress. And afterwards, Secretary Rubio told us that he laid out a plan as to next steps, and that includes the U.S. selling 30 to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil at market rates. Now, Democrats and Republicans had very different views about this briefing coming out of it. Democrats say that they have lots of questions that remain, including what the next steps are, whether there will be U.S. troops deployed to Venezuela, how much this will cost the U.S. taxpayer, and how long this will last. Republicans, by and large, have been supportive of the administration's efforts, saying that they don't need Congress to weigh in here because they say, as the administration has said, this is a law enforcement operation. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, repeated that today and said that the Congress does not have to weigh in here. However, this week, the Senate will vote on a war powers resolution that has been introduced by Democratic Virginia Senator Tim Kaine and Republican Senator of Kentucky Rand Paul to say that the president cannot go further in Venezuela in any military action without consulting and getting the approval of Congress. Now, these lawmakers who are supportive of this effort think that they can gain momentum over the past few days because of U.S. action here, but it doesn't seem likely, at least at this point, that they can get enough Republicans to support it. While you had Republican leadership saying that Congress doesn't need to weigh in here, Senator Rand Paul said that he thinks that the toppling of Maduro amounts to an act of war and that this kind of resolution is needed. So, bigger picture, big debate up here on Capitol Hill as to whether and when Congress should weigh in here. Back to you.
Huey-Burns, thank you.